This has been coming up with clients a lot lately, where they are describing how they've struggled to stay consistent with things in the past because they just feel like they're either all in or doing nothing at all. So like they get all of these good health practices and then they go on vacation and it all just flies out the window, or like they can't stay consistent with exercise, and for some reason it's like they're either going 5 days a week or they're just not going at all. And those are really obvious examples of kind of this all or nothing thinking, but it's so interesting how we can all relate to it, and it comes up a lot in conversations with clients for me. Most people get stuck in this all or nothing thinking when it comes to trying to change things about their life or habits they're trying to lean into or things they're trying to improve. But what really leads to sustainable, lasting behavior change is learning how to do the best you can in the season that you're in with what you have. Perhaps your all or nothing thinking is actually what's keeping you stuck. Something really interesting happens when you're able to move out of the all or nothing approach. You're actually able to start making progress and let go of this unreasonable expectation that everything needs to be done perfectly, which is what debilitates you from making progress in the first place. I can totally relate to this. There's been so many periods of my life where I struggled with holding myself back because I was stuck in this all or nothing mindset. One that's been so relatable to me lately is I spent so much time trying to do internal work and work on deep health and the things that actually made me feel better about myself. But through that, I kind of had developed this story in my mind that investing in things that supported me externally were wrong, or things that that's something I wasn't worth my time doing. For so long, I felt like I was really wanting some sort of external form of self-expression, like something I could lean into and start practicing this. And I was like, oh, an easy way for me is through my clothes. But then this whole story came up that was like, you shouldn't rely on your clothes to make you happy. You shouldn't rely on your clothes to feel like you're fully expressed and as a creative outlet. You shouldn't start buying clothes until you get ABC done in your life, and then you actually have the money to spend on clothes. You shouldn't spend the money on clothes until you can buy what you actually want to buy. And what I realized was this is totally all or nothing. I couldn't even let myself begin to buy clothes or lean into clothing as a form of self-expression or creativity, because it was this all or nothing. It was like a switch that was going on or off in my brain. And I kept telling myself, if you can't go all in, you just shouldn't do it at all. And I think it was easy for me to convince myself that some of these stories are true. But I know that this was all or nothing thinking for me because it had been going on for years. This was not a new thing. It was not like a temporary thing that was going on for 6 or 12 months. This has been a storyline in my mind that has been going on for years, that has held me back from leaning into things that I just feel excited about doing. And I would just tell myself, like, okay, when your acne is gone, you can do it. Okay, when you are able to move out of the apartment and into a home, then you can do it. Okay, when you are able to leave your corporate job and start your own business and that gets going, then you can do it. It was like, you can do it when all of these other things fall into place, or when you can actually do it full out in the way that you want. And while I think sometimes this is helpful, in my case, it was absolutely holding me back. When you're stuck in this loop, you might notice that it feels very restrictive. It feels like you have this tightness in your chest or your stomach where you're just like longing to do something and you get excited to do it, but then all of this rationale or all of these stories start to hold you back and you just go, like, it feels very restrictive in your body. It feels very tight. It feels like you are constantly chasing your own tail and just reliving the same desire over and over again. Like, oh, I really want to change this, or I really want to do this. Here's all of the things I need to do. And then you talk yourself out of it because of this all or nothing mindset. And so then the restriction comes back. And then before you know it, you're back there again where you're like, oh, I really need to do this. I really want to do this. And you just never actually let yourself move forward in any way because it must be all or nothing. You might notice feeling like this constant longing or chasing for something over and over again. And I think we have to be careful to not tell ourselves the story of like the grass is always greener on the other side. You might notice yourself saying, if I can just get my life together, then I'll be able to do this thing. Then I'll be able to start exercising. then I'll be able to consistently take care of myself. Then I'll be able to start treating my spouse the way that I want to. You might be saying, I can never seem to get a handle on this, or I can never seem to get ahead enough to actually be able to focus on this thing in my life like I want to. You might find yourself saying, like especially around food, I just couldn't take the rigidity around my diet and the restriction. So I just gave in and threw in the towel for the weekend. Like I made one little mistake, so I just let myself go for the whole weekend. Because what's the point if I already messed up once? Maybe you catch yourself frequently saying, once I can get X, Y, and Z done, then I'll finally be able to do this thing that I want to do or need to do. Another common one that you might find yourself saying is, once I get through this project, once I get through this big thing in my life, then I'll be able to focus more on this thing that I want to change or do in my life. And another really common thing that I hear women saying, myself included, is I just feel like I don't have time for anything. Like life just feels like it's all over the place. It's happening to me. And so I can't ever get ahead enough to do these things for myself that I want to do. What you might be thinking but not saying out loud is, when is this cycle going to end? Like, when am I actually going to get ahead enough to be able to do these things I want or need to do for myself? You might be thinking to yourself, I'm sick of never having time for anything. You might be starting to feel some resentment for the people and the things around you. You might be thinking, I'm so sick of feeling like I can never get ahead enough in life to be able to take care of myself in the way that I want to, or to be able to actually do X, the thing that I want to do in my life. Or I'm sick of never feeling like I can get ahead enough so that I can actually spend time or money or whatever resources doing the thing that I really want to do. You might catch yourself thinking, but not actually saying out loud, what's the point of even starting if I can't do it perfectly? If I can't actually give it my best effort, what's the point in starting to begin with? You might notice when you're stuck in this all or nothing thinking that you're making it mean you're constantly behind. There's something wrong with you. There's never enough time. You're not enough. You might notice that you're making it mean you're not effective enough. You're not influential enough. You're not productive enough. You're not good enough. You might be making it mean that you're constantly behind, that you'll never actually be able to get to where you want to get to in your life. It's interesting to consider what might actually be underneath this habit of all or nothing thinking. It might be a little bit of type A and perfectionist tendencies. It might be this belief that everything has to be done perfect or it's not worth doing at all. It might actually be a limiting belief that you have about yourself that, again, maybe you're not good enough, that you have to be getting, you have to be doing an A+ job to be approved or validated. And so when you are telling yourself that you're not good enough, basically you're going around creating evidence in your life that you're not good enough. So you're making these unreasonable expectations that you have to go all in on these things, and then you're not doing them. You're falling short, which just reinforces the belief that I'm not good enough and that I am not valued or I'm not worthy if I can't do an A+ job. And so you're just creating this evidence that's then fueling this belief about yourself. Sometimes this all or nothing thinking starts to get used as a little bit of a hiding habit or a buffer. You might notice that you lean into all or nothing thinking to keep yourself from actually leaning into the discomfort of having to do something new or do something challenging, something that feels hard. Maybe it's helping you avoid the feeling or the thought that starting small is not enough. That's not actually going to get me where I want to be if I just start small. Maybe it's helping you avoid doing the best that you can and coming up short. Maybe it's helping you avoid doing the best that you can and having to realign your expectations of what a worthy good job is. In order to move out of this all or nothing thinking, it might require you leaning into other feelings of discomfort, something that feels much harder. Doing the thing that you want to do might feel much more challenging or difficult or uncomfortable. You may have to stop avoiding the thought that starting small is not enough. Perhaps you might feel like you're just trying to avoid the messy middle where the whole damn thing isn't done, where you're doing the work, you're in the process, but you're not to the point where the whole thing is pulled together and you're doing it seamlessly. So by doing this all or nothing thinking, it allows you to avoid the big failure of not having it all together and not having it all done, but rather you might just feel like you're failing every single day because you're not even starting. In order to move out of all or nothing thinking, it might require that we need to prioritize ourselves enough that we can actually get started. It might require that you stop prioritizing everybody else instead of yourself. We often feel like the problem is I don't have enough time, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not enough, or this other thing is more important. But that's not the real problem. We use all or nothing thinking as a way to avoid uncomfortable feelings, as a way to hide from these limiting beliefs that we might really have about ourselves. The real problem might be that we need to create new beliefs and thoughts about ourselves so that taking a small step forward is enough, so that you can learn to actually follow through and believe in yourself and trust that you will do what you say you're going to do. The real problem might be we need to learn how to do the best that we can in the season that we're in. So in my example, maybe I'm in a season of life where I can't spend $2,000 a month on the best clothes that I love that are high quality. But what can I do? What is something small that I can do to get started? Maybe something that's free is purging my closet of things that don't feel good and selling them or donating them. A really common one that I hear often from clients is, well, I don't have a gym membership and I don't have a workout plan, so I just don't exercise at all. And I understand how we get there, but how do we do the best that we can in the season that we're in? Can you throw down a yoga mat at your house and do some body weight exercises? Maybe you can get some dumbbells and start doing some exercising at home. Maybe you simply can just go out for a walk. But then the stories come in, right? Oh, that the walk isn't enough. The dumbbell workouts at home aren't enough. How can I create a workout plan if I don't know what I'm doing? That's not going to be good enough. And I think that's where the real work comes in, that we have to lean into when we find ourselves getting stuck in this all or nothing thinking. A shift in mindset that I'm trying that I want to offer you is, how can I do the best that I can in the season that I'm in with the resources that I have? So again, maybe I can't go buy $2,000 worth of clothes today, but what can I do? Sometimes leaning into what is the smallest step that I can take. One common thing that gets shared with me from clients is like, this thing just feels so big to start. And so thinking about the smallest thing that you can do to move the needle in the direction that you want. It might not feel like it's moving this week, but at least it gets you taking action and moving the needle a little bit. Another really helpful shift is, what might I need to let go of in order to show up for this thing that I want to do? Because I think a lot of us get stuck in this story that I don't have time, which makes sense because life is very full for all of us, and even more full for some of you with children and businesses and all of these things. But if something is never on your schedule and never being prioritized, you're not going to do it. We can all take a look at our schedule and think about, what might we need to let go of? Where do we have unreasonable expectations that we could reel in? Where can we ask for help so that we have 5, 10, 20 minutes to start this thing that we want to be doing? A much more supportive approach is extending yourself grace, expecting that you're not going to do it perfect every single day, and that, of course, if I'm starting this new thing, for myself, for example, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and have this perfect closet that I feel like everything I put on feels amazing and is a creative outlet and I feel fully expressed with my wardrobe, right? That's just unreasonable. And I think that's such an easy example for so many of us to grasp. And so letting go of this idea that we need to overhaul our life overnight and that it's going to be perfect tomorrow, and just extend ourselves grace that we're going to be in the messy middle area where we're going to be doing 5 minutes of something to get started. And maybe we're going to forget for a couple of days. And then how do we bring ourselves back? Another really supportive approach is celebrating your wins, no matter how small they feel, especially when we're trying to cultivate new beliefs about ourselves and follow up with behavior change. Celebrating those wins can be really helpful. So what does this look like in real life, right? Like celebrating the wins, starting small. Maybe it looks like making the smallest commitment possible where you don't feel resistance. So if someone's trying to start exercising after they haven't been exercising for years, how do we make it the smallest commitment possible? Maybe their commitment is they're going to walk for 5 minutes after lunch 3 days per week. That's their commitment. But at bare minimum, when they're talking themselves out of it, all they're going to do is put their shoes on. They're going to put on their walking shoes, More than likely, they're going to walk 5 minutes at that point. But that's the bare minimum. If that's all they do, they take their shoes right off. And you might be thinking, this isn't going to help somebody get in shape. Right. It's not at first. But it's the practice of doing what you say you're going to do and following through and making that first step so small. Maybe you've been resisting having a difficult conversation or resisting following up on this business idea. So the first thing that you need to do is pressing reply to an email thread. You're not going to type anything. Simply press reply so that it opens up. And then the next day, you're going to type, hello, so-and-so. That's the small thing. And then the next day, you're going to draft one sentence, just making it so small that the resistance is as low as possible. That's a really easy way to start collecting some wins and reinforcing your belief in yourself. Another really important thing about what this actually looks like in real life is expecting that it's going to be imperfect. You're not going to show up every single day expecting that you're not going to have the best energy every day. You're going to forget sometimes. You're going to kind of veer off. But the key there is really learning how to recommit. And we'll talk about that in future videos. Like, what do we do when we feel like we're constantly starting over on Mondays? This really feels unnatural for most of us because we want the feeling that we're going to get on the other side of completing this thing, or having a fully formed exercise routine, or having the perfect closet. We want the feeling that we think is on the other side of that. And so why would we lean into this in the first place if we don't feel that feeling that we're chasing? For example, so many of us want to feel like we're on top of our lives enough that we can work out 5 days per week. And so we never actually start because we don't feel like we're on top of our lives enough, and all of these other things are more important. And so we just don't do it at all. It feels very unnatural to be like, okay, I'm working out 1 day this week, and that counts as enough because I'm becoming the person who exercises routinely, but that doesn't mean I'm great at it to begin with. It also feels really unnatural because we're sold people's highlight reels. On social media, we're seeing the highlights of many people's lives and all of the things that they're portraying that they do really consistently. And maybe some of it's real, some of it's probably not. But this just reinforces our limiting belief that, well, if I can't do it all out, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm just not going to do it at all. And it also feels unnatural because we've spent our whole lives practicing this belief that it needs to be all or nothing. I need to be able to do it full out or I'm not doing it at all. And anything new that we have to start practicing feels unnatural at first. Practicing this new belief that I'm going to start small or that it's going to be imperfect feels really unnatural because it's a whole new belief that we have to practice. We've also been conditioned and practiced that we need to prioritize everyone else and everything else over ourselves. And then we get whatever's left over to take care of ourselves, which is usually nothing by the time you take care of all of the things you need to do in a day. There's usually not much left. It's really hard to expect ourselves to lean into discomfort if you're working with the remnants of energy that are left in your day. And so our brain defaults back to this black and white thinking or this all or nothing thinking because this is what we've practiced. It's really ingrained in our thought patterns. It feels easier to our brain to do that than it does to start small and practice new beliefs. When resources get depleted, when we're tired, when we don't have time for things, our brain just defaults back to this mode that it's spent a long time practicing because it feels like the path of least resistance to just move back into all or nothing thinking. A few questions that can be really helpful when we're navigating this is, what do I want to do more of? And then how do I start really, really small? What's the smallest version of this that I can do where I can create the least amount of resistance? How can I make it so small that I can't not do it? And I want to challenge you and ask you, how has all or nothing thinking worked for you in the past? Most of my clients say it hasn't worked, it doesn't work, and it's really frustrating. But that's just a good reflection. Another really helpful question is, how does it feel when we focus on doing the best we can with what we have versus, well, I need to do everything perfectly or it's not worth doing at all? What might change if you started practicing this approach? And if you think about your future self and the version of yourself that you want to be, what would she lean into right now? What would she start practicing in order to become proficient at something or in order to up-level certain areas of her life? You know, maybe it's not about doing everything perfectly or doing the whole dang thing right out of the gate. Maybe it's actually about taking small, consistent action in the direction that we want to move, taking meaningful steps towards the person that we want to become. You see, if you make very small incremental steps towards the woman that you're becoming, you actually show up and move forward versus being stuck in all or nothing thinking and never actually taking the action in the first place. In an upcoming video, I'll be talking about the small foundational things that we can do to improve our health. So if you're someone who's been stuck in this all or nothing mindset around your health, I invite you to follow along and watch that video and share with me how it resonates, or pass it along to a friend.